Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're turning our attention to revenue matters. And we're joined this morning by Mr. Mohammed Bello Shehu, who is the Chairman of Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, RMAFC. Well, he says we can call it RAMFAC now. So who am I opposing? Good morning. Thank you for coming on
Good morning. How are you? Good to see you.
Well, last time we tried to take a look at what and how you're going about your responsibility. But ever since then, we know that the Attorney General spoke some time ago about the directive by the President concerning the remuneration of judges. And thereafter, there was that narrative too that I think it was, you spoke about it too when you were speaking to journalists about what you were able to find sectors that are not remitting funds, yourself and the EFCC working together on that one. So if you could just start by giving us an update. What is going on now, first of all, concerning the remuneration of those judges?
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. We have received a directive by Mr. President on the salary of judges. And as you are all aware and your audience are aware, that there had been a big uproar over the years on the salary of judges. Like I explained the last time I was here, when you hire a judge today, a judge that had been on that position for 20 or 25 years will receive the same salary. And then when it comes to their allowances, like housing allowance, which is about 300% of their basic salary, that if they are giving a government accommodation, that 300% will be forfeited. So I think that Mr. President looked at the report of the EFCC chairman. There was a retreat sometimes back either in 2018 or so, where he organized it with the Nigerian Judicial Council, and they came up with this narrative to Mr. President that the salary of judges are really nothing to write home about, and their allowances. And for them to be more independent and not corrupt, they need to be adequately taken care of. As a society, we should do that. And Mr. President looked at the report, and then there was an activist who took the government of Nigeria, Revenue Mobilization, Attorney General, and the President to court. And there was a court ruling that directed or stated in the judgment that judges should be paid this amount of money. Now, the amount is so huge that I don't think the present government or any government will be able to accede to that court judgment. So as a compromise, Mr. President directed the Attorney General of the Federation to meet with the stakeholders in the judicial system. They had some retired judges. They sat down, they packaged something, they forwarded to the Attorney General. The Attorney General forwarded it to Mr. President, and Mr. President accepted that recommendation. But as a person of law and order and who follows the system, Mr. President knew that he does not have that power as the President to just approve it by fiat. So the whole package was forwarded to the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission to see how this can be implemented. You know, if you look at Section 84 and Section 124 of the Constitution, the powers to determine the salary of judicial officers squarely lies on the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. So now the Commission has taken up that issue and has forwarded the report to the Committee on Monetization, headed by a commissioner, able commissioner from Gombe State. And they have started deliberating and see how this thing can be implemented. And the commission will have an engagement with the Attorney General of the Federation sometimes today on how this thing can be implemented. So I will assure Nigerians that what we are going to do on the review of salary of political office holders and judicial officers, the first one to come will be that of judicial officers. I think we think it's the right thing to do, and I think there is...
Any timeline? When can that be?
We're going to do it as soon as practicable and as soon as possible. You know, it's going to come out. We're going to do it. No going back.
So what about, because you mentioned salaries of political and public office holders.
Yes.
Is that really pressing?
Well, political office, like governor, president, deputy governor, member of House of Assembly, commissioners, other political appointees. Like I explained the last time, I said we have problems. From the Act of 2008 to the president, we discovered there are a lot of discrepancies that we want to address. And if you recall, I was telling you about the differences of salaries between the salaries of career ambassadors and salaries of political ambassadors who were not career diplomats. I explained here that a non-career ambassador earns the salary of a deputy director in the ministry, which is really an aberration. And we are going to really, we have done something on that. And in our review, we are going to bring those issues to be in line with the reality of the situation, because they are both performing the same functions. They represent Nigeria outside. You cannot give somebody a salary of a deputy director and ask him to supervise a director. That is a no-no. And there are some agencies that were created, you know, like Naseni. Naseni used to be under the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, but it was taken out and brought to the presidency with the president as the chairman and then an executive vice chairman who sits in for the current president. And all the people that are within that organization, they report to the executive vice chairman, but they earn the same salary, they earn the same allowance. So we are trying to see how we can differentiate and be able to make it well. And you know, the last time you praised me about the severance package of the president, well, now I can tell you.
Go ahead.
It's just 10,544,000 after the president leaves office.
Is that the basic salary?
No, that's the severance package. The severance package that he gets after he finished. Imagine your whole president, after spending 4 years or 8 years, that's all you say to him here, take home and go. And then the salary of Mr. President is not up to 1,300,000 naira a month.
That's what, the basic salary?
That's the basic salary.
But this doesn't include what, the allowances, all the perks, the ESTA codes?
No, ESTA
who's responsible for fixing that? Is it RMAFC too?
Yeah, it's RMAFC.
So how much is the ESTA code for us?
ESTA code is when you are going out. I think we don't determine that of the president. I think we do that of governors, vice presidents.
Are they paid in foreign currency?
Well, they are monetized and they are given in naira. If there is a foreign currency, they are given. It's nothing. It's like $900 a night or something like that. You know, it's not really jumbo as.
What about the allowances of the president?
The allowances of the president are factored in.
Into the salary?
Into that salary, yes. That's why
into that 1 million plus?
His takes, yes. 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 The minister's salary is under 1 million with all the allowances. He pays his PA.
As president or as?
As sitting president.
Okay, that's
yes,
salary.
I will avail you with the figures.
1.3 million, roughly
1.2 something. Okay. Every month, that's the salary of the president. That's 2008. In 2008, that was considered like a big money. But now you and I know, you know, there are people in private sector and others in other public sectors that earn twice, 3 times, 4 times. What I was saying that time was that no public servant should earn salary bigger than Mr. President. But we do have public servants that do earn salary bigger than Mr. President. NCC, NIMASA,
yes, but you know
NPA,
what? I think
Central Bank.
What a lot of Nigerians, you know, are asking is, because I do remember that even when the president came into office, one of the things he said was that he wanted to donate half of his salary to, I can't quite remember what the cause was,
yeah,
but himself and the vice president for a long time. Well, I don't know whether they're still doing that now, whether it was only for the first term when they were in, or offered to give half of their salary for a particular cause. But what a lot of Nigerians were saying is that generally the way Nigeria looks after its presidents in terms of what it provides, the security, the staffing at the villa, all of this already is provided for. The president most likely will be using his salary for very little, if at all he's using it for anything at all. So people are wondering, you know, whether we should be increasing the salary given all that Nigeria is currently doing for its president. And I'm not just talking about this president. I'm talking about presidents in general.
Yeah, we said we are reviewing it. We are looking at it. You know, the reality.
But it's not going to be downwards.
We'll look at it. We don't know until after the exercise is over.
Why do we feel like we know?
We can look at other, you know, components.
Given what you have said already about how it's very small, you know, and it has not been reviewed since 2008, and inflation has already eaten into it, we have an idea that it's certainly not going to be downwards.
Let me say this, you know.
I mean,
the last time I said, there is a political appointee that is appointed to one of the agencies of of government. When that person leaves his tenure, his severance package is about 500 million naira. That's a public servant. We have agencies like that.
Did you say 500 million?
Yes. Why should a president get 10.5 million and that person in that other agency, also a political appointee, after he leaves office, he gets that package?
Who approves it?
Huh?
Who approves it?
You know, they have, some of these agencies have their own act and laws and other things.
Yeah, but somebody signs off. The president signs off on those.
I'm not so sure.
Even if they act, no, but you've been a member of the House. If you pass a law, the president has to assent to it.
Yeah, my argument has always been that no public servant should earn allowances, severances, salary larger than the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I stand by it.
But don't you think that if the president thought the same thing, they would have made it happen? If he was complaining, if he thought something was wrong, they would have complained and corrected it.
Not this president. Believe me, if he's
even if it's not this one, previous ones too.
I'm telling you, if you never know. Have you interviewed any of them? President Jonathan is alive.
No, we don't have to interview them because you have given us this current situation. You can find out.
Yeah, you can find out.
No, but with the current situation, we know what it is from what you have said.
Look, governors are complaining.
About
what they have. Somebody made an argument that they have security votes and things like that. So that means, in essence, he was trying to sanction that they can just go in, dip their hands in that security votes and do as
Does RMAFC have control over the security votes?
No, nobody has.
So just
the Constitution gives them that power. Yes.
And remuneration.
Yes, you have to remunerate political office holders well. And this perception that these guys have this jumbo salary is not true. The salary of the Senate president is about 1 million. The salary of the speaker.
So are we being, I think perhaps, you know, what we really need to be realistic about, I mean, is whether or not, you know, the salaries and the allowances which we earmark for our public offices, whether it is in line with the current realities, and whether even they look like what their salaries currently pay them. I mean, there are questions around that. So shouldn't we be having a bigger and broader conversation about the lifestyle of our public officials, especially those occupying executive positions, if they are seeking to have more, what the current salaries are, and what we can do, you know, if that is what is causing the huge perception of corruption, what we can begin to do to correct that?
Well, I think we should look at the whole issue holistically, honestly speaking. We have about maybe the Minister of Labor, Dr. Chris Ngigi, was telling a friend that Nigeria has about 17 different salary categories, different agencies, and that he feels and he strongly believes that all these 17 must be collapsed and have a one system whereby everybody gets, because, for instance, if you are hired in Federal Ministry of Information, maybe basic salary of a graduate there is what? 50,000? A graduate. When you go to places like CBN, on entry level, graduate, what, 350,000. When you go to NCC, entry level, different amount. When you go to new...
What's the amount exactly?
The NCC, they won't tell you.
But you should know, you are RMAFC.
No, they won't tell you. We don't determine their salary. There is Salary and Wages Commission. But they will not even disclose. When you go to NPA, the same thing. When you go to NPA, the same thing. That's why what we have now, every well-to-do Nigerian or with well-connected Nigerian will want the son or the daughter will say, Baba or Mama, I want to work in NCC, I want to work in CBN, I want to work in NPA. What about the rest? You know, let's have that debate.
All right, go ahead, please.
Well, it's always a very interesting conversation talking about the salaries and all of public officials, because it's essentially taxpayers' money, right? It is our money, your money, so we always want to know how they are spent. But we've gotten to a point now in Nigeria where we're seeing dwindling revenues. I mean, we're literally battling with the crude oil theft. And I mean, the governor of the central bank recently was speaking at an event talking about, the official foreign exchange receipt from crude oil sales into official reserves has dried up steadily from $3 billion to $0 today. At 2014, it was $3 billion. So clearly we have lots of challenges. And I recall the head of service at some point, she was in the National Assembly, talking about how we're now borrowing to even pay salaries. So the question is, yes, we can review based on inflation, based on the current realities, whether or not this person is earning more than the other. But can we afford it?
Well, when you do a review, the takeoff point is not immediate. And this is a process. Whatever the process is, it has to go to Mr. President and then to the National Assembly, and then it becomes a law. But what people should understand is the constitutional responsibility of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to review from time to time this. And regardless of what the situation is, the Commission is committed to perform its own constitutional duties. In terms of revenue, yes, Nigeria, like my good friend the DG Budget said, does not have debt problem. Nigeria has a revenue problem. And part of the revenue problem is because there are agencies of government that generate money, generates revenue, end up spending 90 or 98% of that revenue year in, year out, because their act permits them to do so, which is in contradiction with what the Constitution says. The Constitution says any receipt from anywhere has to go to the Federation account. This has not been complied in a couple of years. As part of our stakeholder engagement, Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission has met with the Speaker of the House, met with the Senate President yesterday to find a way where these agencies, should comply with the constitutional provisions.
My question is particularly today, can we afford any increments? That's my question particularly.
Even if it means giving them collection fee like we do give to Federal Inland Revenue, Nigerian Customs Services. After they were given, you have seen how the revenue increased. You have seen how the revenue also increased with FIRS, with Customs and NPA. And I think this is something that should be done.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Come out blankly and tell you whether we can afford it or not. But what I can tell you is there are unlimited revenues out there, probably expert estimated from 6 trillion to 7 trillion naira.
Okay.
That is unremitted to the Federation.
I'll get to what is being done.
All the other agencies, EFCC, my commission, Accountant General's Office, FIRS, should go after these monies. These monies are there. This money should be brought into the Federation account.
Okay, I'll go maybe, if we have time, into what is being done to get those monies and where they are, so maybe Nigerians can also assist. But, I mean, during COVID, we saw companies who clearly saw the reality of things. They had to, some of them had to even fire staff. They had to fire, you know, people working for them. Some had to cut salaries just because that was a reality. They weren't earning much, so it didn't make sense to, I mean, they couldn't borrow, a lot of them. So they had to make do with the little resources they had. So some had to pay 50%. Some had to skip months. They didn't even pay for some months. So, I mean, seeing your constitutional role helping in managing those things, is this something you can also do, seeing the reality of the revenues coming in? Is this something you can do and say, you know what, maybe we should slash the salaries by, I mean, they're public servants at the end of the day. We run our country like a company anyway. So is that something available to you, something that you might even consider in the reality that we're in right now?
Slash salary of who? Of politicians or public officers or what?
The ones within your purview, the ones that you have talked about today.
Judicial and political office holders, Haba, give me a break.
So that answers the question that you cannot downward review it downward. So I think that answers the question that Malpa and Chamberlain were asking earlier, that it's not a downward review.
We may.
But you just said you can't slash it.
A review. No. I mean, a review is a review. We have to look at it holistically. Allowances, salary, this and this and this and this and that. We have established this act in 2008, and we know the problems of the act. Just like I explained to you, the differences in various agencies. We are going to look at it holistically. Give us a chance. Let's do our job. Let's look at it. At the end of the day, we don't have a final say. It has to go through the process. It has to go through the National Assembly. And I'm telling you, Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission is encouraging the federal government, the Senate, and the House of Reps to implement the Orasanya report on harmonization of various departments and various governmental-owned organizations to bring them in reality, in conformity with the existing situation now. Agencies that can perform a similar function to other agencies should be merged so that at the end of it you will save. Look, you have been seeing people from various other agencies going in for Senate hearing or House of Reps hearing. You will hear the kind of things that goes on there. You will see a CEO will come on and said they have made like 49 billion and they have spent 49 billion. How did that happen? How can you generate 49 billion naira and then you spend the same 49 billion naira and then the government is paying your salary, the government is paying your personnel cost, the government is paying your overhead cost? How did that happen? So we want to look at this thing critically. Nigerians should ask, if you generate money for the federation, don't come around and say you have spent 98% of it, you are only remitting 2% to the federation. That is not right. And I want, Nigerians to look into this. There are many agencies that are more like a runaway train because their act permits them to spend, and then what they give, what they call it surplus or operating surplus. There is nothing like operating surplus in the Constitution. The Constitution says revenue. Revenue is revenue. And I think we should look into that.
And so I think we'll have to let it go at that point. Yourself, the AFCC, you've been able to find that out. So, but you did say that as soon as possible, the salaries and remuneration of judges, that will be implemented.
Yes.
After which, those of public office holders, the presidents...
will follow.
Will then follow.
Yeah.
All right. You said a review is a review, but well, we stand corrected. It looks as if it will be an upward review, not a downward review, which you say, as the law requires you to do, you will do that. Even though we see public officers fighting to get into those positions, if their salary was that small, they won't be killing and fighting to go and receive 1 million naira or thereabout. But we know more than this.
Well, I'm telling you, it's not because of the salary. I think it's because of the status and the office. Imagine you are a governor of the state.
Of the office.
Yeah.
What they sit on.
Yeah, you are a governor. A governor is a governor. He presides over a state that has what, 4 million, 5 million people. He decides, you know.
Or if my
almost
fleet,
life and death.
If I spend billions on my own fleet, I won't mind earning how much for salary on paper when I control fleets. This country is sometimes, man. It's a beautiful country, I tell you.
Yeah, but if you look at the operating cost in places like the United States, like a senator, people like to bring US. It's huge. Like I said the last time, a senator here, after his basic salary, there is something that is monetized and given to him. The allowances of his like SAs, his constituency office, and this and this. Nigerians should insist, let's have that structure independent of the person who wins the election. You know, let there be the National Assembly will continue to pay the salary of these workers in the constituency offices wherever they are. But the Nigerian situation is such that this thing is packaged and given to a senator or member of House of Reps. That did not come from our commission. This is their own internal arrangement. So Nigerians can insist that have separate, you take your salary, you go home. The rest are going to be taken care of by the system. And this is what Nigerians should agitate for. And I'm in support of that.
All right, so there you go. Mohammed Bello Shehu is the chairman, Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Thank you for coming on today.
You didn't ask me about how to mobilize revenue and all these things, you know, what we do.
We will have that conversation another day, I believe.
We know you're already doing that, so let's let you do that in peace.